And there we go. Welcome everyone to today's webinar. People are probably going to stumble in the next few minutes, but we want to spend the time wisely. So again, for the second time, welcome to today's webinar, which we've titled How to 10x Your LinkedIn Leads Using AI Agents. Today, we're going to cover a lot of different things. Among the system that we've used to generate more than 68,000 leads for Buro itself, for as our company, and more than 100,000 in total for clients as well. And we've done all of this 100% organically, posting posts on LinkedIn, not spending a single dollar on paid ads. So there's a lot of things that we're going to cover. I'm going to cover some of it, and I have Lindsay in my team, a part of the webinar as well, and she's going to cover some things as well, and we look forward to it. One thing that I want to make as a big promise to you guys by the end of this webinar is that you guys will understand not just this in theory, but you'll understand how it's all built up. Like, what are the prerequisites, what are the systems, and also how to turn this into a hands-free, hands-off system that is using AI agents, and it runs 24/7. So the system we're about to show and reveal and take you through is the system that you can use to autonomously, with AI, post posts on LinkedIn, drive leads for your company, and do this in a way where it optimizes itself. That might sound a bit far-fetched and a bit like wishful thinking at this point, but by the end of this webinar, you're going to understand that it's actually doable, and you are going to understand what you can do with it. So if you have questions throughout this webinar, we are going to have a Q&A session at the very end. And we have 5 main things that we want to go into. The first one is, after I've gone through some more things, I'm going to leave the word to Lindsay, and she's going to take you through 1, 2, and 3. The first part is showing you guys the infrastructure and map, because the system we're about to show you guys, no one has this. No one is running this. And the reason why we know this is because we are one of those that are doing the most types of posts for this type of structure on LinkedIn in the B2B marketing and growth and AI sphere. So we're going to show you the infrastructure. We're then going to go into context, because AI, everyone has access to it. What makes you unique and get better results from AI compared to everyone else? So we're going to reveal something called the context cake. If you've been on any webinar that we had before, you are maybe or hopefully familiar with the term. But Lindsay is going to take you through that. And the third thing Lindsay is going to take you through is the conversion resource. The best thing that I've seen for the past 15 years, since 2011, in generating lead flow is giving something away for free. So Lindsay is going to go more into that as well. Then I'm going to be back on from section 4, which is about the promotion and capture demand. So basically how you use content to drive lead flow to your company, and then also how to automate the entire thing and make it an autonomous loop. Because who doesn't like having leads being generated hands off? You're not doing anything, just getting people to come to your company and your brand. That is what we're going to cover today. And at the end, as mentioned, we're going to have a Q&A. So since we are on Zoom, some housekeeping. So down below, you can see 2 things. You can see chat and you can see Q&A. The chat, we're going to ask you to do several things and type things in the chat, and we will love your engagement. So I hope we can agree that, okay, we're going to be engaging. And also, we have a Q&A button. So if you have questions throughout this webinar, it doesn't matter at what point in the webinar that you have questions, just dump them into the Q&A. We might answer them throughout, but we have the dedicated slot at the end. In terms of time, we are expecting this to go around an hour. But as we've experienced going back in terms of having 8 other webinars, where hopefully some of you guys have been part of those as well, is that sometimes it goes over, sometimes we're on track, sometimes it just ends up having a lot of questions. One other thing as well is that if you stick to the very end, we have a unique opportunity for everyone to more easily put what we're going to cover today into practice. It is something that we always extend in a webinar, which is we want to help you as much as possible get this and use this so that you can actually get started. So I'm not going to reveal what it is, so stay tuned to the end to get that. Next up, before we really dive into it, I'm going to let Lindsay go with the first session, is I want to play a bit of a true or false game. I always like to do these on a webinar because who here has been a part of a webinar that has been so monotone, so boring that they basically just shut off? Like they almost fell asleep or you just tuned out. We don't want this webinar to be like that. So throughout, we're going to ask you questions. And I have 3 questions to you guys now, where I want you to type true or false in the chat. That is 1, to check that you guys are, let's say, awake and you're aware and you're locked in and really focusing, but also to make this interactive. Because an interactive webinar makes you guys get more out of it. And I can also ensure that we cater for what makes you guys get the most out of it. Sounds fair? So the first question I would love you guys to answer in the chat is true or false to this statement. You need to have thousands of followers on LinkedIn to generate a stable flow of leads from the platform. So I'm going to bring up the chat here and see what people have posted. Suspense false, Avro is false, Howard is false, Paul false, Matthias false, Els false, Brian false, Ben false, Fiorella false. Okay, that's really good. And the testament to this is, as of now, I personally have 60,000 followers on LinkedIn. And I thought years back that would help me a lot. But we also had a client that when we started working with him, he had 143 connections of followers on LinkedIn. In a couple of weeks, he got 4,000 leads from LinkedIn. And I don't particularly get more than that. In some cases, I get even less than that. So currently, as of now, LinkedIn is boosting and promoting smaller profiles on LinkedIn to try to even the playing field. So you don't need thousands of followers. So that's the first thing. Second question is you need to send outbound on LinkedIn to drive lead flow, meaning sending outbound connection requests, messages, hammering people's inboxes to try to convert people to become a lead. So true or false in the chat. So I see Howard false, Spence false, Matthias false, Els false. I see there's every false. So are all both true and false? It's kind of a bit of a tricky question on this one, a trick question to some degree. It's ultimately false. You don't need to send outbound, but outbound is also a good way to drive lead flow, but it's not the one that we're going to really address today. The thing that we're going to address today is posting on LinkedIn and sharing content on LinkedIn itself. So everyone has basically answered correct. So 1, you guys are staying, let's say, top of the game and following along. So I like that. Question 3, you need to spend at least an hour a day on content, writing posts to be able to drive any significant lead volume from LinkedIn. True or false? Everyone else answering false. So I think I made these questions a bit too easy, Lindsay, because everyone is like, they're at top of the game. Like everyone is answering true. Oh, there's actually one that answered, or a few that answered true. So a few true. The ultimate question to this is false. If you don't have the system that we are about to reveal and show you guys in this webinar, you probably would need to spend several hours running and doing this. However, this doesn't need to take a lot of time setting up. And once it's set up, it runs 24/7. So those were the questions. And with that, I'm going to do a short intro to Buro, short intro to myself, and then I'm going to let Lindsay go into this first secret sauce with you guys. So quickly about Buro, if you're new here, you haven't seen us around before, we build AI growth infrastructures for B2B companies, meaning we help companies turn content, lead magnets and resources, automation, and nurture into a repeatable pipeline. Because ultimately, you want the right audience to be attracted to your brand. You should, if you're like the companies that really grow fast, you should educate your audience, because by educate them, you build a certain level of trust. And by converting that interest and that trust, you can turn people into leads, and you want to nurture those relationships. Because imagine last time you got a referral. Having that call was amazing because it was not a lot of objections, like someone already vouched for you, these other things. The reason why that was so nice was because a certain level of trust was already established, because you rented that trust from the referee. And then when you have those and you nurture people to be like that, that naturally turns into sales, because everything is played on easy mode compared to super cold audience. But most people skip nurture. So that's what we do. If you don't know me, my name is Harold. I'm the CEO and founder of Buro, and I turned founder at the age of 16. And since then, the last 15 years, I've been obsessed about anything and everything under the topic of digital growth. So paid advertising, organic advertising, outbound, inbound, automation, AI, whatever it is. So if you're up for a chat about any of those topics, we can probably talk for hours about them. At this point, I've helped hundreds of companies within this realm of growing digital marketing, digital sales, AI, and automations. And we were one of the first to ever run outbound on LinkedIn. So probably if you're like a lot of people on LinkedIn, you're either sending outbound on LinkedIn or you're receiving a bunch of outbound on LinkedIn. And usually it's a lot of spam. When we started, it wasn't spam, it was on proper, and it was like a 10 times performance of what we see today, because now everyone is doing it. So if you were to do it, you need to do it smart. And internally in Buro, I'm a bit of the mad scientist, where I'm always looking at how can you patch together and build these systems to automate the different parts of what it is that we do. So that's a bit about me. And with that, I am going to let Lindsay take over and give an introduction to yourself, and then go into three of the juicy parts of this webinar.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thanks, Harold. Yes, I am Lindsay Jew, and I have spent 20 years in sales and marketing, working as a CMO in Silicon Valley to working at a hedge fund in Seoul, Korea. And wherever I am, really my mission is to make sure that the strategy moves marketing into a strategy that's really supporting the output in sales. Interestingly enough, this webinar was requested from a VC fund to help their portfolio companies grow. So this is just a peek behind the curtain at the same advice that we share with these high performance companies. And you are in the right place if you are also aiming for explosive growth at your own company. Now, when most companies approach AI content, they're thinking about the production side. But the real issue here is around demand capture, because more posts don't just equal more pipeline, right? So most people are thinking, when they're thinking about just the content production, how do I write more posts? How do we create more ideas? How do we publish more often? And while that's useful, that's not the whole picture, because like I said, more content isn't just going to get you fatter pipeline, right? You get the comments, you get the likes, but you need to know who's actually relevant. And if you don't have a follow-up system in place, then you're not capturing all of that attention. So you need to connect the demand capture. And that means that when content creates a signal, the system captures it, they structure it, you enrich it, and then you send it somewhere useful. Let me explain that further. Okay, so to explain this, we have two models. We have the macro and then we have the micro. The macro is the full growth infrastructure, and it shows how leads move from content to becoming captured in your system. And the second is the micro model, and that's the autonomous content engine. It shows how we create, promote, review, and improve content over time. With the autonomous content engine, this is the part that creates repeated attention, lead capture, and then the macro, that's what's going to turn it into pipeline. So you need both, right? If you don't have the macro layer, then you just have content engagement. If you don't have the micro layer, you have an infrastructure, but no content demand input. Going further into the overall, so the infrastructure or the macro side. A LinkedIn post, that's where it starts. It creates an initial signal. Somebody comments, they request a resource. But if it's just staying within LinkedIn, it has limited value. That signal needs to extract the person, store that event, that conversion event, enrich the lead, and then make sure that that person or that lead is taken over to your backend or your database. And then from there, the lead can enter into email nurture, retargeting, your CRM, be scored, and then enter the entire sales process. So the post is really just the front end. And the infrastructure behind it, that's what's going to create the pipeline potential. If you're just looking at the micro model or the autonomous content engine, you're starting off with a resource, right? We're leading with value. So when you create a LinkedIn post that promotes the resource, people comment, then the system captures those comments as leads. You want to review what happened. So which resource worked the best? What was the angle? What was the way that the post was structured? And who were the types of people that commented on them? All of that data, that's going to feed into your next post. So you're not just randomly posting each time doing more and more, but you're using all of that to get better and to optimize your results and decide what to promote next. Okay, like Harold said in the beginning, we're looking for engagement. So I want to make sure you guys are with me. Who here is ready for quality over quantity? Type Q in the chat. Let me know that you guys are following along and you're ready. Because what we hear from people is that there's on LinkedIn and maybe they don't post as much or often because they feel like maybe posting on LinkedIn is cringy. If you're seeing that feeling, the reason is because you're missing quality. Okay, good. I see Spence, King, Afonso, Howard, you guys. Yep, Brian, you guys are with me. Thorborn, thank you. Thank you. Yes. Okay, so how you're probably asking, how do I do that? How do I avoid the cringe, Lindsay, and stay into quality? It's all about your input, right? Like Harold said earlier, we all have access to AI where everybody in the competition is using ChatGPT and Claude already. So the question is, what do you feed into it? If you're feeding weak generic input, that's going to be your output. You're going to get weak and generic. If you're feeding rich context, you're going to get specific output. So what I mean by that is feed it information about your market, your buyer, offer, proof, objections, your sales language. And that's going to give you such a better specific output. And this is where the context cake comes in. So let's drill into that. This beautiful layered cake right here, this is what you're going to think about each time you go to use AI and produce anything. Okay, think about these 6 layers here. First, we're going to start, and I got a thumbs up from Paul. Thank you, Paul. Is the company. Okay, so ask yourself, what does your company do? Who do you serve? What's the business model and what's the offer? Right. The second layer of the context cake is who is this for? Who's your target audience? What's their role? What are the company types? Your third layer, you want to think about the problems. What are they struggling with? What have they already tried and why are they stuck? The next layer is the belief layer. So, what is it that the buyer needs to believe before they can take action? For proof, you can use things like results, screenshots, case studies, your client language, or even the insights that you get from sales discussions, right? And then the top layer of the cake is the voice. So, what's the angle? Do you have some strong opinions? Are there angles from the founder or your company that you'd like to put into this voice and the tonality? This is all how the AI content stops sounding generic and gives you that quality that you guys are looking for, that so many of you commented Q on. Just to add some more color, here's some examples. We have your sales calls. Those transcripts are highly valuable because they can really show how buyers describe the problem. Your offer docs, that's going to clarify what you actually sell. Case studies, as I mentioned, that's proof. The objections, that's going to show the friction within your buying process, and that can come from sales discussions. It can also come from customer discussions as well. The post, that's going to show you what's already worked and what's attracting people. If it's lead magnet performance, that's going to show what people are requesting. And then your CRM notes are showing the various buyer stages. These are just a few examples, but they are going to make that cake or that library so much more rich and give you additional quality output. So bring all of this over into your context library. I also want to illustrate another example that we did internally. We had 627 bookings and we had notes from those bookings. We had 249 questionnaires that many of them filled out, and then 375 call transcripts. We fed that into AI, aggregated the data, then we use that to coach sales. And we also wanted to see, okay, what's the data? What's going on here? And we saw who we were attracting, the pain and how they named their obstacles, what they've done to try and alleviate the pain, and what we typically recommend. Now, when companies take this type of data and they analyze it, they can see where the misalignment comes from the sales pitch to what the company actually delivers. This information is gold because it not only helps you align your sales, but ensures that marketing matches up with the sales process and overall company alignment. Okay, so feed that into your context cake, feed that into your database. Doesn't matter which database you're using, Airtable, Attio, Postgres, but feed that in so that you can retain it and use it. The content needs to convert. So once you fed all this context into the content, you want it to convert. That's your goal. If you want lead generation, ask yourself this simple question. What is the person raising their hand for? Right? They see the post that creates attention, but that's not enough, right? We have to get them to take action. And if they're going to take action, the reason is going to be because they want a resource. Sometimes I call the resource the cookie, right? They want a reason to jump or do something that's really attractive for them. And that's going to make them comment, opt in, give their valuable information, right? Their name, email, maybe phone number. And the system captures that signal and turns them into a lead. So how many of you, I think that you guys are, I would guess mid to advanced here. How many of you are already offering a resource? Type R in the chat and let me know if you're already offering, or if for whatever reason you haven't yet, type X. I want to see where you guys are in the process. Okay, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I got three X's. Actually, okay, seeing a lot of X's. All right. So there's a lot of opportunity. And then those of you, I see Paul and Avril, you guys have already offered resources. So those of you that are offering resources, you're probably here to further optimize that. And those that aren't, you're here to figure out how to do that and how to do that well and with quality. Okay. Thank you for letting me know that. Actually, I do have, but it doesn't seem to work. Okay. You're in the right place else. We'll tell you how to maximize that. So there are different types of resources, and they tend to fall into three categories. The first is informative. Today's webinar, this is informative, right? You guys are learning, you guys are getting information, and that's also it can be a guide is informative, a playbook. Okay, that's the first category. Second category is implementation. A checklist might be that calculator scorecard, but that's getting them to start thinking about their actual work and what's going on within their business, right? So it's starting to dive deeper. And then the third deepest level of what a resource could be is output. So that could be a template, a prompt pack, or even a swipe file. And really it can be any of these types, but what you want to ask yourself is, what does our buyer care enough about in order to request it? What's going to get them to take action? Because if your resource is solving a real problem and connecting to the buyer, then it has a better chance of converting. So that's why I talked about the three categories. And that's what we want to think about every time is get them to convert. So here's some examples of what we did at Buro. First is a sales assistant. So these are a series of prompts, and it utilized sales scripts and lead research tools. And what it does is it helps with calls, helps prep for the calls. It helps for conducting the calls themselves and also the follow-up after the calls. The second here, that's a calculator, which relates to Buro's system. And it just demonstrates the lift of benefit that businesses could experience when using our system. And then the third here is a webinar. This one in particular was titled How to Go Viral on LinkedIn. So as you can see, it's a variety of different types that we've put out there. What makes a good resource, though? And I see that's what you guys were thinking about in the chat. A good resource is specific, right? Because if you have broad resources, you're going to attract broad interest, right? And you want to make them specific because you're looking for a certain kind of buyer. It should be immediately useful. And people, when they open it, they should be getting value from it quickly. It needs to connect to a real problem that the buyer already recognizes and be relevant to the buyer that you, in fact, want. It should naturally connect to the offer. Okay, so what does that mean? I don't mean that the resource is a sales pitch. I mean that the resource should make the buyer more aware of the problem that your company solves. The best resources, they help the buyer while revealing the need for additional support. Now that you guys understand the infrastructure, the context, and how the resource is framed, I'm going to pass it over to Harold. He's going to lead you through the next step, which is all around promotion.
So there we go. So we've covered a bunch so far. I've seen that there have been a couple of questions. And yeah, Paul, bravo. And it was a good one. So there's a lot to be covered. There's a lot to this system. But doing the pieces that Lindsay went through so far in the right way and doing those properly, that lays the foundation for everything. So for example, I saw someone ask the questions about, okay, how do I do the definition of an ICP? What if I don't have a lot of context because I only have 2 clients? So if you have questions like that, please drop it in the Q&A because then it doesn't drown away from all of the comments and the rest of the chat. It just makes it easier for us. Okay, they're there, we're going to address them, and we're going to get them. So we're seeing you guys asking the questions, and we have the dedicated queue at the end. One thing I also want to give us a bit of a heads up before we go into the rest is that a lot of this might seem obvious when we're going through it. And the interesting thing is that over the past 15 years, it's usually the basics, doing the fundamentals, that is often overlooked because we see these new shiny objects all the time and we're like, oh, this is so amazing, we need to do them, but you skip the basics. So please don't do that. Build your context cake and figure out how you can create a really valuable educational piece of content and resource that will actually help someone. Because that's how you actually build trust in your market. Like we are dedicating several hours every second week to host a webinar like this. And we do it because we know there's so many things that could benefit you guys. And this webinar and this topic is just one of them. We talked about how to go viral on LinkedIn. We talked about how to create resources. We talked about how you as a founder can extract yourself and no longer be the bottleneck. We've talked about the macro infrastructure install. We're talking about all of these different things that are the basics that you need to have in place. And you can be fancy on top. So what I'm going to go into next is basically all of the thing that we're talking about today is revolving around posting on LinkedIn. Most of you guys most likely came in touch with our Buro, with myself or our company through the posts that we've done either through our internal or extended network on LinkedIn. And those posts typically have the promotion of a resource. So it's the typical comment X to get it on DM. There's a right way of doing it and there's a wrong way of doing it. And what we've seen is that any type of resource can work. Any type of content can work, any type of hook can work, and any type of image can work. And given the resource matrix in terms of the 3 different types and videos and written and playbooks and toolkits and prompts, all these things, everything can go viral and work. But you need to have these 4 sections. You need to have a hook in the beginning. You need to have a problem section. You need to have what the resource is all about. And you need to have a comment call to action. LinkedIn likes these calls because that's how the algorithm is built. Any social media platform with an algorithm is built to retain people on the platform. Meaning, if you have content that tries to bring people away from the platform, it's not going to reward that. It's going to reward something that indicates that people are sticking around. The way, or one of those indications, is that people comment on the post, because then they actually do things on the platform. And the reason why the algorithm is optimized towards that is because it wants to optimize the ad revenue that it can make the platform, in this case, LinkedIn. So the more you stay on the platform, the more ads LinkedIn can serve you, ergo, the more money they can make. So you want to have these four. And the reason why these posts perform that well is because of the underlying mechanisms of the algorithm. Now, an example of a post like this is this post. It might be a bit teeny tiny for you to read, but essentially it's a post that we did that generated, and this post alone generated 2,931 comments, 106 reposts, and 534,000 impressions from one single post. This is an exception, but it is an indication of it can work. And we've seen this time and time and time again. We've done more than 270 posts that have gone more than 200 comments plus. So we know the recipe. And these four sections are the most important things when we've done full-on correlation analysis of every post that we posted. And we posted 2,500 posts. So we know it's working. The essence is you want to do these posts. Now the question is, okay, how does this all fit into a larger system? So before we go into that, I'm curious to hear if some of you guys are already posting on LinkedIn. So if you're already posting on LinkedIn, type A in the chat. I see a few people are posting. So Howard, Afonso, Brian, Paul, Avril, Els, Ben, Christopher, Dustin. Okay, so you guys are posting on LinkedIn. So that's really, really good. Now, question to that is I want you to type B. So I'm adding a second question. I'm making it a bit difficult for Lindsay to type it in the chat, but type B if you're already posting the post that I now revealed. So the comment X to get it type of posts. So if you're already posting this type of post, type B, like the second letter in the alphabet, in the chat. So Aral, you're doing it. It's not a whole bunch of people typing B in the chat, which means that you guys are posting on LinkedIn, but it's different types of posts than what we now just covered. And that's interesting. And that tells me a couple of things. I'm going to spend a second on this. There might be some of you guys that think, okay, the LinkedIn lead magnet types of posts with a comment text to get it is a bit cringe. Or I don't want to be that guy or I want to be that gal. The thing is that that type of post is only sharing value with your audience. So for example, take this webinar. Hopefully, since it's 45 of you still sitting around, you found value in this so far. Otherwise, you would have left. If I were to ask you to comment something and you would get this video, do you think that would be an equal and fair exchange? If you think yes, what is making the post cringe or I don't want to be that person when the thing that you're providing is value without any other ask than someone to comment? So the thing is that these types of posts are sharing value with your audience to a far greater depth than what they're usually, or one is used to, and get elsewhere. And also it allows you to build a relationship and provide value to your audience instead of your competitors providing that. The second thing of this is that you need to stay true to your promise. So if you say that someone is going to get it when you comment, for the sake of it, ensure that someone actually gets it. There's a lot of people on LinkedIn doing this and never sent the resource out to someone that commented. And that is ruining the entire, let's say, experience, sentiment about that type of strategy, but it's working like clockwork. And it's done that for the 18 months plus that we've actually done it. So not a lot of you that actually do it, but you should, and hopefully by the end of this, you will have a better idea of how you actually can get started doing it. So the next thing, this is a bit of a bonus kind of hack that I wanted to include there for you guys that are maybe a bit more technical. And that is, if you want to figure out what the best type of posts are, there is this platform called Rapid API. You can go to Google, you can search for it. And you have this API called the LinkedIn Scraper API. And this basically allows you to fetch posts from certain profiles. So if there are profiles that you find, okay, I love their content, they're doing lead magnet posts, or they're doing the comment text to get it type of posts, and I want to figure out what's the best. You can use this API and tool to extract all the posts that someone is doing and reverse engineering both the posts that they're doing, the structure of them, and also what they're posting about. And if you feed this to AI, AI is going to be able to help you do all this and give you the instructions for how to do it. But this is more a bonus hack that I wanted to share because there's a lot of people that I know that have no clue that this tool even exists. But it's one of those that we use, and it's an integral part in running a automatic system like what we're about to cover. So Lindsay showed you a bit of the LinkedIn post, comment, and what happens next. I'm going to go a bit more into detail on that right now. So everything starts by having a resource that you create a post to promote on LinkedIn. Once people then comment on that post, we use lead shark, which is the purple fin, shark fin that you can see here, to automate the handling of that post engagement. And it does a couple of things. It replies to the reply that someone comments on it replies to the comment someone made on their post. It is sending them a DM on LinkedIn so that you can actually send, hey, let's say, hey, Avro, hey, Bren, hey, Paul, hey, Lindsay, hey, Harold, here's the resource you commented to get. It also allows you to send a follow-up DM if you want to follow up them, let's say, an hour later or the day after or a week after, referring back to something or driving a call to action or a pitch to a meeting, for example. That's the automation of the post. The second thing it does is that it can send you the data out of LinkedIn, meaning who commented, what did they comment, and on what post did they comment. And you can take that data, send it to a webhook, and depending on how your automation and integration work on the backend, you can send that to N8N, Zapier, Make, or any integration system, and pass it onto your database. And then you can see the dark image that you have here. That's basically our database of all comments and data that we received from the posts that we have. And we have, I think at this point, 200 something thousand comments on LinkedIn for Buro alone. So we save all of that data. We parse it so that we have every lead, every comment, and every post, and we enrich all the leads. And that is where it's pushed back into the backend that we have, so the CRM, which is the fourth image at the bottom to the right that you guys can see, where we now have 61,000 active contacts representing 34,500 companies, 200 plus thousand activities, and so on. So we get everything saved in one place. So LinkedIn and posting is just the lead source. It's what's feeding the entire engine. But through that, we get a lot of data. So we get comments, lead, posts, resource that is posted about, all of these things. And that brings us to another just visual of this, because you need to have these things in place. And given the limited time on this webinar, we're not going to go into certain pieces of this, but we're going to show you how to stitch it all together. So first off, you have your promotion. So that's basically how do you get your attention? You can get your attention through running ads, or as we talked about today, posting on LinkedIn. Then the question is, how do you capture the leads? You can do that by slapping on a sign-up page or a landing page where people need to submit, or you can bypass and send them directly to the resource and having an enrichment system in between. Now, you want to feed every lead into your CRM, because that's how you can analyze everything. You can analyze what post did they come from, what resource do they consume, to what degree do they consume the resource. And that allows you to run what we say most companies skip, which is the nurture and retargeting. Because I can ask a question to you guys now, and that is, how many of you have a system to stay top of mind, visible, nurture, and retarget every lead you get for the 12 months after they became a lead? And how many of you are running a campaign where you're trying to book a meeting, and if they don't convert to that meeting, there's really no other system on the back of it? I have a hunch that most of you are like, should I have a system to follow up for the next 12 months? And to that, I say, absolutely yes. because most of your audience is not buying anything right now. Only 5% are, statistically. The 95% others are going to be ready in a month, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years from now. And the one company that is visible to them when they are ready to buy, that's from who they will buy. And if that's not you, that's going to be your competitors. But we're not going to go too much into nurture. We can talk more about that in a separate webinar, or you can have a call with us and we can go into it. But ultimately, all of this is to drive your pipeline. Now, to run all of this, now just a bit of a disclaimer. Now we're going to go a bit more nitty-gritty into it. Ultimately, you want to have 3 tables in your database, which is posts, comments, and leads. But optimally, you want to have more than that. And that's the complete database schema that you guys can see on the right side. So you have your database where you have on the right side, you have companies and you have leads, because a lead or a contact is representing a company. You also have posts, and under it you have comments, because a comment is made by a lead and it's made on a post. Then you also have post templates, posting schedule, and performance analysis that is linked to post templates. By having this type of setup, what you end up getting is that by posting on LinkedIn, you can get every company, every contact that comments from that company, the comments that they made. You have the comments linked to a particular post. You have a post linked to a specific post template for what's the template that generated that post. You have the ongoing daily analysis of every single post template, and you have the posting schedule for when things were posted so that the AI can run it autonomously. By having this, you're able to build a feedback loop, meaning AI can review all of this data and say, this is the next post, this is the next resource, this is how the post should be, and then post it automatically on your behalf. And that is what we're really going to go into. Because when you get the lead and you enrich the lead, you want to pass it on in different directions. So you want to add it into your email nurture, which is where we use Encharge. You want to pass it to your CRM, where we have our own proprietary CRM system. You want to run retargeting ads to stay top of mind and visible in multiple platforms and channels. That's where we run Meta, so basically Facebook and Instagram ads. You want to pass tasks onto sales, where we have our own pipeline. You want to run your outbound sequences, which is where we use GetSales. And you want to do lead scoring to have your internal signal system to see who's actually engaging with your company and your brand and showing actual buying intent before they ever book a call. And that's where we also have our own proprietary system doing that for us. So all of these things are possible to do just by having someone comment on a post. And most people preaching about posting on LinkedIn, they have nothing on the back end. They're just doing DMs and posting on LinkedIn, and that's it. But 95% of every meeting that we've gotten from posting on LinkedIn has not come from the post itself or the DM. It has come from the back-end system of nurture, showing up, being visible, providing value. And that is what we recommend you to do as well. Now, by having all of this, we're able to allow AI to do what it's best at, which is analysis, finding correlations, and let's say drafting for us. So what we're doing is that every day we run a review loop. And that is AI reviews the recent posts, comments that we got, the leads that we got, the best performing resources, the best angles and post templates, the quality of the leads that we're generating from different posts and resources, and the performance of the call to action, meaning how is the post really ultimately performing? And with this, we're doing an analysis and report on how is a post performing, how is things going, and also having a daily track record of progression. And by having a daily track record of progression, we're able to see if we're optimizing and going in the right direction. Because once we have all of this, we can feed all of this into as inputs, as context. So you have the context cake that Lindsay mentioned and went through in the second section of this webinar. You have your resource, which was the third section of this webinar, which is an educational piece of value in any shape and form, either informative, implementation, or outputs. And you feed that in. You have your performance data, so the weekly or daily performance review of how things are going, and you have your best performing posts. If you feed all of that into AI with the task of, one, identify the next resource to post, and write the next LinkedIn post to promote it and create the image for it, and the date and time it should be posted, you're going to be able to get the output that is automatically and by itself optimized according to the data and the stats that you already have. People skip the inputs and the context. That is why we started this webinar with number 2, which is context cake. It's the most important thing. And by doing what you do, you should gather data, because that data allows you to automate the entire thing and optimize it autonomously. So for you guys that are a bit like, oh, I don't want AI to autonomously post on my behalf without me having to approve things. So one thing is, everything that AI drafts is saved in the table, but you want to save it in the table where you can be the human in the loop. Meaning you can approve it, you can edit it, you can change it, you can reject it, and you will see the status of every single post that you have in terms of if it's scheduled, if it's posted, if it's drafted, and these things. And AI will not do anything unless you accept it to. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, the closed loop content engine. So you have your context, you have your resource, you post, people comment, that turns into a lead, you enrich the lead, you run nurturing of them. So that is something that runs on the back end. You then review the performance of the given post and resource. You draft a new post, and then the loop goes around. And the thing that I now want to jump into, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, is the actual flowchart for how all of this works. So what I want to do is I want to bring up that flowchart. So I'm going to replace what I am sharing and share this flowchart. So there are 3 main steps for automating all of this. The first step is the automating of the posting and the extraction of data and handling the engagement. The second piece is the data extraction and saving things in the database. And then the third one is acting on the data that you then build up every single day. So to zoom in, and I'm going to go through each of the steps. So the very first task that is done is that the post is posted on LinkedIn. And what we have in the system is that we check whether the post contain like a keyword, which is comment. If it doesn't proceed further with that post, because you can post normal things. As you guys said, a lot of you guys are posting on LinkedIn, but they're not doing these types of posts. But if it does contain comment, we automate that with Lead Shark, and it does these things. It auto handles the engagement, meaning replies to comments, send them the DM, and send a DM follow-up. And it also exports the data. So when someone comments, we get details like this. So as you guys can see, we get the name of a lead. We get the LinkedIn URL of a lead, and that is really important. We get the ID of the comment, and we also get the ID of the post. So with this, we have lead, comment, and post, which are the 3 records that we want to save in the database. And that brings me to the next one. And that is this webhook. We basically save that in the database. That is the most important thing. So we take the raw data, so basically what you guys can see here, and we save that in the database. Once we have that, we have a system that runs on a certain interval. So that could be every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, depending on how heavy of, let's say, server that you have. And it finds the raw webhook data. So basically the webhook that we now saved, and we want to process that. So we do 3 things. We check if the post already exists, and if it doesn't, we create it. And once created, we use this API, which I mentioned earlier, to scrape it and get all the details saved in our database. So that way, you don't need to add your posts at all to your system. It just runs by itself. The second thing we do is that we check if the lead exists. And if the lead doesn't exist, we add the lead to the database. And then we run lead enrichment, and we use get sales for this. And that basically takes all the details that is on the LinkedIn profile of a lead. So about, title, history, experience, any posts that they made, anything like that, and it saves that into the database. And then it checks whether the lead is linked to a company. And if it is, or if it's not, we check if the lead or if the company exists. If the company doesn't exist, we scrape the company details. And again, we use get sales for this too. And then once the company is in the database, we link the lead to the company. so that we have a company and we can see every lead under that given company. For example, we have more than 100 people from Accenture and Google and Salesforce in our systems. The final thing we do is that we process the comment and we link the comment both to posts and to leads. So that way we get this. So we have our posts, we have our leads, company, and comments, and they're all linked in this way. So you have a lead under a company, you have a comment under a lead, and comment under a post. This is half the battle, because now we've already, if you were to set up this, you're already doing more than 95% of people running lead magnet posts on LinkedIn, even the agencies that you can outsource this to. The third step is really building and turning this to be autonomous. So we run it on a fixed schedule. So for example, every morning at 9 a.m., we do certain things. So we fetch the post for the X last period. So that could be yesterday. We analyze the metrics for all of it. So we find the best performing posts and resources. We map the last 30 days of posting. What's the best performing resource, best performing post, and we review the existing post structure template, meaning what's the template of the structure of the post that was used. And all of this is then stored in a database of analysis so that we can reuse that later. Now, the analysis does a couple of things. First, it checks, do we have enough data to confidently and statistically say how this type of post structure is performing? If it's no, we keep using the same post structure. If we say yes, which I haven't added here, we basically have AI draft a new structure for the post based on what it thinks is going to increase the conversion of engagement of a post. And it saves that to the database. The next thing that it then does is that it identifies the next resource to post about. It fetches the current post template, so the structure that is to be used. It writes the post. It saves that written post to the database. And then we check, okay, do we need a human to review this? So if you have a human in the loop, you get notified, you can approve it, and then it goes into a schedule from the database. And this is where we then schedule it through the use of lead chart. And then that flips all the way back to the beginning where the post is then handled. We extract all new leads from it. We run the schedule every single day to check what does the best performing post, profiles, timing window, structure, resource, everything. It drafts a new thing and posts the next thing the next day over. And this system then becomes autonomous. And what you then end up getting is that you're getting this system and data structure that we talked about, which is you have company or all companies have engaged with you, and then the leads and contacts that have done that, their comments that they made, you have the post and the comments for those posts, you have the post template that was used for a post, the analysis of said template, and you have the schedule, which are the slots during the week that you are able to post and schedule into. With all of this, you can now lean back and AI runs the entire system for you. And again, the thing here is that this is a closed loop. And the key thing is you need to have the resource and you need to have an initial post, and then the system can optimize and do this on your behalf. If you have something like this, you're going to be able to not only generate leads from LinkedIn, I would say that you're going to generate 10 times more leads. In some cases, you're going to generate more than that, but you need to get the work done. And that is the thing where I want to go back and to the presentation, because there is one piece here that is so crucial to actually go into, and that is, let me turn and change the slide. Here we go. And that is where companies typically fail to implement something like this. So as I mentioned in the beginning, a lot of companies just stop. They don't complete the entire engine. Like they don't do the loop, they don't get the data, they don't even extract the data from LinkedIn. They just run posts and get DMs and inbox and a network. The first cardinal sin, I would say, is weak context. So not having a proper context cake. Second one is creating resources that doesn't really help someone. Third one is no comment capture. So if you're doing posts on LinkedIn, not having any system to extract those and actually engage with your content, because it's a freaking it's a signal. Someone is engaging with what you have. They take time out of their day to engage with what you have because they're showing a level of interest. Why not take that as a signal and save it? No lead extraction, no enrichment, no nurture, no feedback loop, and no human approval. The last one is optional. But these are the things that typically break. People don't do all of these things, or they only do pieces of them and not in the right order. So this is where you should have something. And I prepared kind of like a 10-step checklist to try to make this as easy as possible for you to start doing. Because the question after a webinar like this, often in a lot of cases are, this sounds really, really nice. I want this, but where the heck do I start? So the first one is map the macro. So how do you generate the leads? What is it that you give them so that they actually show interest in you? How do you capture them? And how do you nurture them over time? The second step is build your context kit. So that's identify what your company actually does, write it down in detail, define your ICP, define your tone of voice, figure out, okay, how you actually are to communicate this, what makes you different, all of the things in the context kit. Then you need to create a resource. What is it that you create? It could be you going on a video just yapping about anything. It could be you sitting down an hour and writing a guide on how to solve a very, very specific pain and problem that your audience has. It doesn't really matter, but you need to have something. And we've seen any format work. So don't be obsessed about being a perfectionist on, okay, it needs to be perfect. It's better to have something than nothing. Then post it on LinkedIn. Fifth, use Lead Shark to capture the comment, reply to them, and send them the thing, and extract the leads. And then sixth, use something tools to enrich the leads and save them in your database. Then add in AI to do a daily review or do it manually in the beginning. But AI is going to save you a lot of time. Then add AI to draft new posts for you. Add the human in loop if you want to, or go a bit batshit crazy and let it go autopilot. And then turn it all together into one closed loop and system. That's the roadmap. That's the map to the hidden treasure kind of thing. This is what you need to do. And hopefully this helped you in terms of getting a bit more clarity on what this is all about and how to do it. And I want you to ask a genuine and honest question to yourself and answer honestly. You don't need to put it in the chat, but it is, do you have a clear ICP context, like who it is you're targeting? Do you actually have resources? Because I saw in the chat that some of you already have that. Do you capture comments? Most of you don't, because only a few said B when I asked if you're doing these types of posts already. So most of you don't do that. And you should. Like we drove more than 100,000 leads for us and clients, 200,000 comments just for Buro, because we were able to capture the comments. And you need to extract leads. Are you doing that? Are you enriching the leads? Hopefully some of you guys are doing that because you're probably running some sort of other motion. Do you segment them according to who's actually cold, warm, and those who are super hot? And do you nurture them? As mentioned, you should have a system that can nurture every lead you generate for the next 12 months. Because if you're not doing that, you're missing out probably on 50% plus of the market that you otherwise could have been able to convert to your brand and a client. Do you review performance? If you're not doing it manually, can you use AI for it? And do you use the performance and the metrics and what you see to create the next post? Probably not. And if you're not, you should do it. And AI is the best way of doing it. But the core thing is that the basics, the underlying fundamentals, you need to have those right. And AI is the thing that makes those things perform better. Not the other way around. AI is not your saving grace. AI is the thing that enables you to do more with less and automate and optimize it. But you need to do the basics. So the thing that I mentioned in the very beginning is we wanted to give you guys a bit of an opportunity at this point, because this has been a lot. Like you might, even with the diagnostic and even with the 10-step checklist, there might be questions, okay, how do I actually do this? And one thing that we've done, and at this point I've had countless webinars, and I've gotten the same feedback every single time. And that is, Harold, this was really great. I learned a lot, but even the thought of starting doing this is a bit overwhelming in terms of, okay, where do I actually start? and it would be nice to get a couple of personal pointers and recommendations. So what we want to invite you guys to do is schedule a call with us. We would love to talk you through how to do this. And in a call like that, to really enable you to take what we covered in this webinar and do something with it, we go through three things. We do a bit of an audit of your current state, like what content do you have, what resources can you generate, what lead capture systems do you have? Like we try to figure out what it is that your current state has. Then we identify the gaps. So we diagnose what are the things that are missing in what areas. And then we go into a blueprint. We go through and build your personalized roadmap. Like what is it that you should do? Where should you start? What systems should you use? So that you leave that call with clarity on, okay, this webinar was good, but now I have my game plan. So we want to invite you to this because we want to make this webinar something that you don't just attend, but we want to make it something that you actually do something with. So in the chat, we are now going to drop the link to schedule a call with us. Lindsay dropped it in the chat now. So use that link. And once you click on that link, you will get on a page like the one on the left, where you can schedule your intro call. This is something that is available now for the next couple of days and into next week. And the call is going to either be with Lindsay or myself, depending on availability, because we have different availability throughout the day. And when you schedule a call, you will get to a confirmation page. And the confirmation page is basically says your call is booked. On that page, there's a video of me explaining like, hey, what's next? And on that page, there's a questionnaire. That questionnaire we want you to fill because that gives us more data about your company, how you're currently growing, what's working, what's not working, so that we can be more efficient on the call together in our audit, diagnostic, and our design of your game plan, of us giving you the recommendations for what you should do and how you should do them. So the link is in the chat. You can go ahead, you can find a time, and you can schedule a session with us. And again, I just need to put emphasis on this. The purpose of the call is to help you actually take what you've learned now in the webinar and actually do something with it. That's our goal with it. Obviously, if there's something else comes out of it, we can figure that out. But the goal is to give you the personalized, let's say, treasured, now I forgot the word, basically your roadmap. So with that, I think we get to the final part, which is the Q&A section. So now is the time for you to ask us all your questions. So if you have questions, drop them in the Q&A. I see there's plenty of questions in the Q&A at this point. So if you have something, drop them in there. We're going to stay around to answer all the questions. So if we need to sit there 30 minutes to be able to answer all your questions, we're going to sit there for 30 minutes answering all the questions. Typically, we've even sat for 45 minutes answering questions. So Lindsay and I are prepped for whatever it is that you guys need. So with that, I see there are several questions already.
Yeah, I'll read the first one out. Avril says, what if we don't have a lot of context because just getting started and have two clients? I'll start and then feel free if there's something else to add in. But yes, even with two clients, Avril, there's still a lot of data. So, like I said, you probably had a number of calls with each of the clients. So that's maybe you have some transcripts. If not, you have your notes from when you had calls with those clients before they came to you. So that's, use the data and what you have. So use those call transcript, use your notes in the CRM, use now once they became a customer, there's feedback, there's frequently asked questions that you can start putting together. That's still going to be highly valuable. So I wouldn't say it's not a lot of context. It's just, yeah, you have your initial clients, just use whatever you have to feed it into the cake. So just think about still going through all six of those tiers that I went through and feeding that in because it's still going to give you a higher quality output than if you didn't put any of that data into the context cake.
Yeah, I think the basically just to quickly add on it, it's you have more data than you think, and usually you can also take the initial data that you have and research online for similar people and what they say online, and use AI to reverse engineer from a first principle standpoint what the blanks you have as of now might be and fill them. So you probably have way more than what you actually need. Um, I think the next question again from Everall is, but how do you appear in the feed of your perfect ICP at first and then really cut through the other AI slop for them to comment for the lead magnet? Um, I think the simple thing here is you don't ultimately have control of who sees what you're posting. The thing that you can do for that is what is it that you're posting in the first place? Who's that relevant to? If you're saying, let's say, how to make money, everyone is interested in that. But if I were to say, this is the growth system for B2B SaaS companies, okay, then it's B2B SaaS companies that will even entertain or be interested or engage with it because it's calling out them explicitly. So that's one piece of controlling it. The second piece is it does help that you have more of your ICP in your network on LinkedIn. So at one point, it makes sense to just do a regular networking outbound campaign on LinkedIn to connect with people, because that adds more of your ICP to your network. And the more are in your network, the more likely they are to see the post initially and engage with it. So engagement and network is two ways to actually impact it. And also to get through the AI stop, one thing is if you post 5 times and hope that it's going to work, you're going to be bound for disappointment. The system is built to run autonomously post countless times and really infinite as long as you run it. So if you post 10 posts, it's more likely that you're going to hit and actually get the results from it. If you post 100, it's guaranteed. And that's where we want to go. So volume negates luck in this case, overall. Anything to add to it, Lindsay?
No. Yep. Avril says, yep, makes sense.
Yeah, doing networking up, thumbs up. That's good.
Mm. Okay, let's see. This next one is from Brendan. I put in his LinkedIn profile and says best mid, worst conversion propensity ratios. I think, Brendan, maybe you could just help me clarify this a little bit, but I think what you're asking about is with your LinkedIn posts, what would be your expected conversion ratio? And we aim for impression to comment. And for that, we like to see between 1% and 2% ratio on that. That's really our goal. Anything above that would be grand, but if it's not at least hitting the 1%, then we try to improve that and see, what is it that's not working about that. But if I miss what you're asking, let me know in the chat to clarify that. Yep, you said got it. Okay, great. Let's
Yeah.
see. Next question from Tobon. You can build awareness or views by posting regularly. How often would you post comment before you post a call to action post like this so you can maximize for comments? Yes, I do think that it's good to also have things like thought leadership posts or personal stories, which might not have comment X to get a resource. But if you're going to be posting these types, we recommend 2 to 3 times a week on your profile. That's what I would recommend. And then you can sprinkle in the other types like sharing news story or just other visibility type posts throughout that, as really just depends on how much time you have.
Yeah.
Mm. Let's see, next question from Christian. Isn't post X or comment X to get Y engagement bait according to the algorithm changes? Also, pods. Do you mean podcasts? I'm
No,
guessing that he means
it's pods.
no
It's
pods.
pods.
Okay,
Yeah.
pods punished now as it seems. Oh, pods. Okay. Would you want
Uh,
to take that one?
yeah. So basically, um, as I mentioned earlier, any social media platform algorithm is always going to reward engagement, well, posts that has a lot of engagement on them. And yes, you could say that it's quote unquote engagement bait. However, you can do it in a lot of different ways. You can do just comment to get it. We see them still working. There's no real difference now compared to what it was 18 months ago. Um, but I do know that pods are being punished. And for those of you that don't know what pods are, it's basically a group of profiles that keep on engaging on each other to kind of give each other the initial kind of boost. So that could be a like, it could be comment, it could be repost, whatever it is. And yes, to some degree, they are being punished, but they have always been punished to a certain degree. The thing is, what is the engagement that someone is making? The general thing of the latest algorithm change, which basically was LinkedIn implementing an actual AI and LLM on the evaluation of a post, is whether it's actually relevant. So is it useful? Is it relevant to the audience? So one piece that you can, which is one structure of a post, is actually educate someone in the post as well, and have the comment text to get it to be kind of like comment text to get the full thing. So give them kind of like the first chapter for free, and then you charge kind of like with a comment for the rest of it. So there are several ways to look at it, but you need to understand what are the underlying mechanics of a post, of the algorithm, and what makes people tick. And to that, I answer saying that it's easier to do them now than what it is before, because if you have something that is proper content, valuable, it's easier to stand out because most people use AI to create slop.
Tobon asks, how do you think about the split between marketing efforts or the enabling party and sales efforts, the end user in this case, to implement this workflow? I guess some of the workflow could or is being set up from the marketing team? Question mark. Mm, yeah, I'll take a stab at this first. I would say that this, yeah, so all of this I would call it marketing strategy. And I think you're asking who does what. And it's really a combined effort, and that you have to, both the sales side and the marketing side should agree on what's happening. When we work with clients, a lot of times it will be posting both, it can be from both sales profiles and the marketing. And then who owns what? So if you're asking about like content is usually framed by marketing. If you have a dedicated marketing person or a dedicated marketing team, then I would say the framing of the content. That said, of course, sales, I think, has more insights on what the customer is talking about, the questions they're asking. So that's why I say that there will be some overlap and definitely a contribution from both sides. Um, let's see, what else would I add to that? But I would say content is usually owned by the marketing. And then the way that the leads flow to, they're going to flow usually over to the sales side. And once they're ready to have a discussion, or once sales sees, okay, these leads are hot, I want to follow up with them, usually that's when it changes over from the marketing to sales, in my experience. Anything to add to that, Harold?
Not really. I think the most important thing is ultimately building a close relationship between marketing and sales. And at one point, this could be done individually by a sales rep. So if you're a sales rep in a company, and this is ultimately you posting from your own profile. So if you, again, unless you have stipulations that makes you restricted from posting on your profile on LinkedIn, you could do this from your own profile and use that to drive your own lead flow. Question is how you integrate that into let's say, the whole backend CRM pipeline systems that your company use. But that would be a case-by-case system to evaluate. But there's no real reason for being limited or just one party owning the entire thing of what we're talking about. What we like to say is that if a company has a sales team, it's really the sales team that we want to work with, because those are the ones that are actually going to work the leads. and not necessarily just be hung up on the marketing side of things. But it depends on how the company is set up, Torbjørn. So yeah. The next question is an anonymous. It sounds very interesting. I do have a few small automation that I'm building, and I don't require a huge amount of leads. I focus on quality and projects over 10K and just require 3 to 4 a month. Have you got a short process that is as effective as this? The thing to answer this is ultimately 5% of your market is ready now. And that 5% needs to trust you enough to go with you. So if you want 3 to 5 a month or 3 to 4 a month, imagine, let's just make that 5. You need 100 people, 80 to 100 people show interest and at a certain level where they would be interested enough to jump on a call with you to go through the sales process to get them on the projects of 10K plus. So the question isn't necessarily how can I make something as effective as this that basically is half the work, because then the system would be half the work, half the system, and as effective. What I would think about is what's the minimum thing that you can set up to start getting something? And the thing that I usually recommend, again, this is case by case because every company is different. I don't know the audience that you have selling something for 10K. You need to have a sales process, you need to hit at the right time, and you need to be good at sales ultimately. Is actually running something that is outbound. So I would find the target audience, I would draft messages, and I would send something to them and use it and basically provide them value upfront. Because personally, since 2016, when I started doing outbound on LinkedIn, no one has sent me any message giving me a resource or giving me value upfront. Everyone has pitched me, asked me a question, and after me answering the question, pitch me. And no one likes that. So how can you go really, really targeted towards your audience and do that? Also, you need to take into account the constraints. So if you were to do outbound on LinkedIn, you can send 800 connection requests. But I always recommend don't go with 800, go with 600 max. That's about 25 to 30 a day, meaning you can only send 600. So the question is, how can you get then 100 people a month of those 600? So then you just need to calculate what are the connection acceptance rate you need and what's the reply rate and conversion rates you need to hit those 3 to 4. And then you can math it out. I think that's the way that I typically would answer it. But there's no system doing what we have COVID now with way less effort, because then we would have a way less effort system.
Yeah. Short answer to that, Anonymous, is we'd be happy to do an audit and work through your particular instance on a call. So I put that link back in the chat. It's open to you, Anonymous, and others if you'd like to do an audit and go through your particular instance.
Then we have Clara, what are your prices? Our prices are custom because the system is integrated, set up in different types of ways depending on the existing stack, what do you need, how it should be set up. So that is something that we could figure out in a call, Clara. So Lindsay just dropped the link to schedule a call with us in the chat. So I would recommend you to schedule a call with us. Again, you're not committed to anything, even if you jump on a call with us. The worst case is that you go from that call with the clarity and the roadmap for how you should do this. And if that ends up not being working with us, we're completely fine with that. We want to have the calls to get to know you better and give you tailored recommendations based on this webinar, because this has been very, very generic and general, not personalized to a particular type of company or operation. So prices are custom. Josh Block, can you build this in Growth Garden? The old version of Growth Garden, you could not, but this is something that we build inside of the platform as we speak. So this is not something that is a off-the-shelf type of solution, because again, as mentioned in terms of my answer to Clara, it depends, like what stack you use, what system you use, and it's a bit tied to also the question that I see from Sim, which is what tools do you use for enrichment and data setup. So all of this depends on how your current stack is, but obviously we run this in our own internal custom setup, which In some cases, we rent out to clients where clients can have a license for it and they can access the same thing. So hopefully that answered your question, Josh. Should I go ahead and answer the last one as well, Lizzie?
Yep.
So same, what tools do you use outside of LeadShark, specifically for database setup and enrichment? So in a previous slide, we showed the different databases. So we use Postgres for database. So we basically have our own server that costs like $5 a month. We install Postgres on it, and we save everything to that. In terms of enrichment, we use GetSales primarily because it's public data that they basically scrape and have for every single lead and company. But you can build other things on top of this. Like you can use Clay to do things. We're not using Clay because we don't see the need in it because we can get it in other ways. And you can use other types of enrichment systems. But the core thing is a lot of this that we're talking about today is not an off-the-shelf solution. You need to build it, and it needs to be built according to your company. And that is one of the reasons why we introduce the call that you guys can schedule with us, because we can understand what your company is set up like and how you should do it and give you the recommendations. So basically, it depends, but GetSales is one, and Postgres is the database. There are obviously other databases as well, but that's what we recommend.
Okay. Okay. Yep. And then let's see. A couple more questions just came in. Alfonso asks, for someone like myself who doesn't have enough time to create regular posts, what tools can help to create content relevant to the industry for the comment to generate a lead type post? So yes, Alfonso, would happy to be able to talk about your specific instance on a call and what that could look like. We did go through what it would look like if you're using AI. That was the part on how to feed it in with the context cake or the context library. And then if you're just wanting to automate that into a system, we have different options on what tools that could help you do that with a system in place. So that would be my recommendation to you is if you're wanting to do it on your own, use the context cake and use your favorite AI. If you'd like some help, we'd be happy to chat through that further. Let's see. And then Dusan put in the chat, what's the budget needed for these tools and AI agents to run weekly? Yeah, Dusan, we talked about this on the call, but that is custom to everyone. I can send you a note privately about what we talked about for your particular instance. But if you're just looking to, if you just maybe he's just talking about like lead shark and
Yeah, the tool costs.
yeah. Hmm.
So the tool cost for this design is not much. Like you need LeadShark for scheduling, that's like $40 a month. You need GetSense for enrichment, that's like 60, $70. So you're, let's say, roughly say 100. You need a server for the database, that's 5, so you're at 105. And then you have your AI cost, which is minuscule, maybe a couple of bucks a month. So if you truly were to be, let's say, really technical and you are comfortable doing and building it, like just the tech stack is like $110 a month, maybe. And then the question is, okay, what's the number of leads you need to get to argue the price? But you will not really find it anywhere cheaper than that. I do know that there is something going on behind the motions to aggregate a few of those tools so that you have less tools that you need. But ultimately, that's roughly where just the tool stack for it sits. So yeah, nice. That was the question. Thank you, guys. Of course, as I mentioned, like if we need to sit there for 30 minutes answering questions, we are ready to sit there for 30 minutes answering your questions. Any other questions that you guys have? I know that there are 19 of you guys on. There's a reason why you're here 1 hour and 24 minutes later. Might be some things that you want to ask about. It could be anything. Like what I usually say at the end of the webinar like this is, if you have a question, it doesn't need to be related to what we talked about. It could be, that's the best. But if you have any questions about LinkedIn, posting, ads, organic, resources, automation, AI, whatever it is, you're able to ask them because now we're sitting here and we're dedicated the time. So Torbjörn asked the question, what types of assets do you typically see? I assume then, Torbjörn, that you're talking about types of resources and then those types of assets and lead magnets. Yes, okay. So there's several ways to answer the question. So one is, what do I see people post? And what do I see, and from my point of view, I see perform. So there's a lot of people doing Notion pages. And we were doing them in the back, going back as well. So basically, have a guide, have prompts, slap them onto a Notion page, click share, you have the link, and that's what you give people. And those resources being checklists, to-dos, prompts, guides. So basically, if we were to, let's see if I can go back to the slide that we have. So slide 21, group, in terms of the different types. So here. So what I typically see is I see playbook, checklist, prompt pack, swipe file sometimes, and rarely mini course. I rarely see templates. I rarely see calculator, audit, toolkit, or SOP. The thing to think about here is Lindsay mentioned a bit about it, and that is you have resources and assets that inform, so educate. You have resources and assets that help people with implementation, and you have resources and assets that produce something for someone. Because the question is, okay, what is it that makes an asset valuable? Learning something is valuable, but you can go to ChatGPT and ask the same thing and figure it out if you're good asking questions. So then the question is, okay, you know the thing, but now you need to do something about it, and that's where you have implementation. And the question is implementation tedious or is it easy? You want it to be easy. So you want to have something that ease implementation or helps them with implementation. And that's why checklist and playbook is so nice and templates. And then you have the last one, which is, okay, once you've implemented it, you get something out of it. And this is where prompts, custom tools, calculators, scorecards, things that actually produce something for someone, helps them just save the time of learning it and implementing it. It just shortcuts all of that. So in terms of assets, you want to have all three. You want to have the ones that take time to consume and learn to and educate the audience, because the more time someone spends with your brand, the more invested they are. You want to have something that helps them in implementation, because then they can have some quick wins. And you want to have something that produces output, because that makes the life of your leads and prospects easier. So you want to have all of them. And we try to do all of them. And we've seen all of them work. Like every one that you can see on the screen now, we have a version of it. So the ultimate one is anything and everything can work, but you need to be conscious of what you actually create. Because no one rarely has a system underneath all of it. I see we got some more questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, next question is from Avril. So if you're targeting older folks or mid-market CXOs, what possibly could be a strategy to get them to really trust you through lead magnets content, being a younger guy? Yeah, we we have plenty of people who are in their 20s using this to get those CXOs or top level leaders. So it can work. The key is really, are you solving a problem that they're facing? Because they are on LinkedIn and they are, looking for resources to solve their problem. And so it's not really about your age, as long as you're putting out thoughtful and quality information. I wouldn't let that stop you from feeling like the strategy is not going to work. Just like Carol had said, it's a mix of the different types of assets and content that you're putting out there. The same would apply to this question. And he's gonna pull that
Yeah.
up, maybe. Nope. Okay.
No, I just went to the final slide.
Mm-hmm.
I think the
Mm-hmm.
general gist there overall is it doesn't matter your age, it matters what you're able to bring to the table. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's being younger is actually a benefit when it comes to anything technical, because the mid-market or CXO that are, let's say, of the older guard, they are not necessarily as technically adept. So you're able to see a picture and a world in a completely different manner than what they are. And that usually helps in those instances. Mm.
Mm, then Josh asks, LinkedIn organic reach has dropped so much in 2026. How have you dealt with the effectiveness with your tools and systems?
I think it's an interesting question because, yes, to some degree, things have gone down. But if I'm looking at the engagement trend that we've had going 12 months back, we had months going back in 2025 that had the same type of engagement that we're seeing now. One other thing is obviously, yes, the number of engagement or reach. So let me not say engagement. The number of reach has gone down, but conversion on reach to engagement has gone up. You don't want reach. You want engagement. You want leads. That's what you want. You like, why have someone see your thing if they don't engage with it? It's wasted effort. And that is one of the things that have changed with the algorithm is, and which was what I mentioned, the LLM of LinkedIn is evaluating, is this relevant? If the answer is no, it's not going to show him to the person that it's not going to be relevant for. If it is going to be relevant, it's going to show it. So engagement of the impression to convert comment rate has gone up compared to what it was in 2025. So it's more about quality of engagement and quality reach than just the purpose of reach. Reach in itself is a vanity metric. You don't want to chase that. You want to chase engagement. More profiles, more posts, mix your type of posts, and ensure that you have several ways for people to share it. Do those things and you're going to be good. It's very direct, but there is a very, very simple solution, and that is optimize for the right metric.
Mm,
Brandon asked a question.
I think it's a comment,
Okay.
which yes, I would agree with his statement. He's worked with the Big Four, the First Magic Circle, and he asks his clients, what is your problem? And then he turns that around and creates an asset which solves that exact problem. And of course, it's speaking to doing that in a way that's going to reduce time and reduce costs. So yes, that's definitely in line with the formula and what we recommend. So I would agree with that, Brendan. And we're looking forward to speaking to you later today. I saw you booked a call. Mm. Let's see. And then Dusan put some questions in the chat.
Yeah. I have also a question about which AI agents do you recommend having as a system, either as personal assistant or business, such as OpenClaw, NanoClaw, Claude Code, combining them, and also do you offer help or consultations for those solutions? So two ways or two things. For the system that we talked about today, I would not recommend going with OpenClaw and NanoClaw at all. And the reason for them is you want to add in a gate in terms of actually running the functions that you want to run. One thing to think about is you don't want to use AI for something that is deterministic, or you don't want to use an agent like OpenClaw, like Hermes or NanoClaw, on a function or an activity that is deterministic, meaning it's you do this and then you do this. And in the flow that we talked about, let me see if I can go back to this one. So basically the extraction of data, you don't need an AI for that. It's just basically a webhook. The processing of the data, that's just a flow with some code or an n8n. The analysis of your post, that's AI. And you add it to the database. And the writing of post is also AI. But you don't necessarily want AI to then do the scheduling to this. So there are ways to set this up. So I wouldn't recommend actually using any of those. If you were to use something for just general personal assistant, I would actually use Hermes, similar to the clothing and luxury brand. And it's from a company called News Research. They are better in terms of memory, but that is way more of a technical thing. In terms of the second question is if we offer help or consultations for those solutions, yes and no. So yes, we do it in terms of with clients, we have a open call on Zoom 2 times a week where we can talk about anything, including, let's say, setup and how to run and do a system like that. However, we only offer that to clients where it makes sense. And also that's why we have a call. Like we don't let any clients in unless we have a call with them, because we only work with companies that are a match for us, how we work, and also that we know we can actually help. That's why we also have the call. So if you want to schedule, or have you talked to Dusan, Lindsay?
I talked to Dusan
Yeah,
just last week. Yep.
yeah,
So we mapped out a plan.
yeah. So basically, everyone we work with, that is something that we add in. Like when we work with companies, it's typically two things. So we do work, and we also strategically consult on anything that is relevant. So that is definitely something that we could go into, if that's the setup that we end up going with. But again, a bit hard to say specifically here now without having the final update from, like, let's say the process you and Lindsay, and the conversation that you guys have had. Um, mm, mm, mm. Let's see. We have a question.
I
Yeah,
think
Brandon.
that's all of them.
Yeah, sounds like that's all of them. So for you guys that are still around, I know some of you have scheduled a call with us to get the personal breakdown of what you see on the screen now in terms of how you should do this. But there are still some of you guys that have not. I hope that you have found this to be valuable, that you've learned something, and I think with that, we are going to wrap up. So
Mhm.
we stayed now for 36 minutes. It doesn't seem like any of you have more questions. So with that, hope you enjoyed it. The link is in the chat. When we wrap up the meeting, the link is going to disappear. So if you want to schedule a call, you now have the opportunity to do so. Having said that, thank you for showing up. We appreciate you being here. And we are going to host more webinars. So stay tuned in
Mhm.
your email inbox for the notifications for that. But that being said, have a great rest of your day, and we will see you soon.
Bye,
Bye bye.
everyone. Thank you.